and a coupon for a free meal. When he returned, his frustration had calcified into something harder. "Jimmy, we need to talk." Brandon's voice was lower now, but still audible to the kitchen staff. "I've tried to be patient with you, I really have, but you're too slow. Every single shift you hold up the line. You cost us drive-through times. You make customers wait." James wiped down his station, methodical as always. "I apologize, sir. I'm working as fast as I safely can." "Safely?" Brandon let out a bitter laugh. "It's French fries, Jimmy. What's unsafe about going faster?" Around the restaurant, several customers were now openly watching the confrontation. Some looked uncomfortable. Others seemed sympathetic to Brandon. The old man was slow. Anyone could see that. But in a corner booth near the window, a man in a faded army field jacket had stopped eating entirely. He was staring at James with an intensity that had nothing to do with the argument. He was staring at something on James's chest, something most people would never notice. A small pin, barely visible beneath the McDonald's uniform. A pale blue ribbon with a pattern of white stars. Marcus Webb, 58, former Marine sergeant, set down his burger with trembling hands, because he knew what that pin was. And if it was real, if it was actually real, then the old man being yelled at for being too slow making French fries was one of the rarest, most honored individuals in American military history. James Taylor had been working at this McDonald's for 3 years. He'd started at 70, shortly after his wife Dorothy had passed away. The house had become too quiet, too full of memories. His children lived in other states, visited when they could. His pension was comfortable, more than comfortable, actually. But sitting at home watching cable news had felt like slowly disappearing. Dorothy had always said he needed to stay busy. "You've spent your whole life serving, Jimmy," she told him during those last months. "Don't stop now just because the uniform's different." So, he'd applied to McDonald's. Passed the background check immediately. The FBI had files on him going back to 1969, all spotless except for the classified sections. The hiring manager, a kind woman named Sarah, had seemed surprised someone his age wanted the fryer station, but she'd been grateful for a reliable worker. Brandon had been hired 2 years later, brought in as assistant manager with a mandate to improve efficiency metrics. He was young, hungry, fresh from a management training program that emphasized speed, consistency, and cost control. He saw James as a problem to be solved, a bottleneck in the system, a drag on performance numbers. What Brandon couldn't see beneath the aging exterior and the minimum wage uniform, was the man who'd earned the nation's highest military decoration. James "Jimmy" Taylor. Specialist, U.S. Army. Medal of Honor recipient. Vietnam, 1971. The lunch rush intensified. The drive-through lines snaked around the building. Inside, every table was full. The line at the counter 8 people deep. "Jimmy, I need 40 orders of fries, now!" Brandon shouted from the expo station where orders were assembled. James moved steadily through his station. "Lower the baskets. Check the timer. Lift, salt, bag. Not rushing. Never rushing. Because rushing led to mistakes, and mistakes in his old life had meant people died." "Did you hear me? 40 orders." "I heard you, sir. Working on it." Brandon stormed over to the fryer station. His face was flushed, his carefully maintained professional demeanor cracking. "Look at this screen." He pointed to the drive-thru monitor. 15 cars waiting. 15. And you know what the bottleneck is? You. It's always you. James continued working. Steady hands. Calm focus. "Why are you so slow?" Brandon was nearly shouting now. The entire restaurant could hear. Kitchen staff exchanged uncomfortable glances. "This is literally the easiest job we have. Teenagers do this. High school kids on their first day move faster than you." A few customers shifted in their seats. An elderly couple near the counter looked distressed. A mother with 2 small children quickly gathered her things and left. James set down a basket of perfectly golden fries. "Sir, I understand you're frustrated. I'm doing my best. Your best isn't good enough." Brandon's voice cracked with frustration. Maybe this job just isn't for you. Maybe you need to think about whether you're capable of working here anymore." The restaurant had gone quiet. Even the ambient noise of the kitchen seemed muted. James looked at Brandon. Really looked at him. And for just a moment, something flickered in those pale blue eyes, something old and deep and infinitely patient. "I understand, sir," James said quietly. "I'll do better." Brandon opened his mouth to say something else, but a voice interrupted. "Excuse me." Everyone turned. Marcus Webb was standing, his army field jacket clearly visible now. He was walking toward the counter, toward James, his eyes fixed on the small pin barely visible on the old man's chest. "Excuse me," Marcus said again, his voice rough with emotion. "Sir, I need to ask you something. Let me ask you something. Had you ever witnessed someone being humiliated at work? Have you seen a person dismissed, belittled, judged as worthless only to discover later who they really were? Keep that moment in mind, because what happened next in that McDonald's changed everyone who saw it." Marcus Webb stopped 3 feet from the counter. He was 58, built like the Marine he'd been, with graying hair cut military short, and eyes that had seen combat. And those eyes were locked on the pin on James Taylor's chest. "Sir," Marcus's voice was shaking, "that pin you're wearing, is it real?" James glanced down at his chest, at the small Medal of Honor lapel pin he wore every day. Most people never noticed it. Those who did usually didn't know what it was. "Yes," James said quietly, "it's real." The restaurant had gone completely silent. Brandon stood frozen, confused. The kitchen staff had stopped working. Customers at nearby tables were leaning forward. Marcus took another step closer. His eyes were wet. "Sir, what's your name?" "James Taylor. Most people call me Jimmy." Marcus pulled out his phone with shaking hands. Typed quickly. Waited. His eyes widened as he read. "James Jimmy Taylor, Specialist. Charlie Company. Where's this taken mon to where's this cerning? Where's this cerning? Four's this cerning? Where's this cerning? Where's this cerning? Where's this cerning? Where's this cerning? Quar's this cerning? Where's this cerning? Quar's cerning? Quar discerning? Quar's cerning? 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 Quarter. You saved 37 men, under heavy fire. You went back. You kept going back." The restaurant erupted in whispers. Several people pulled out their phones. Brandon stood completely still, his face pale. What are you talking about?" Marcus ignored him. He brought his feet together, stood at attention, and rendered the sharpest salute he'd ever given in his life. "Sir, it is my honor to be in your presence." James, standing behind the friar in his McDonald's uniform, slowly returned the salute. "Thank you, son. But I'm just making fries now." "No, sir," Marcus's voice cracked. "You're never just anything." Brandon found his voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. "Someone explain what's happening." An older customer, a man in his 60 seconds, stood up. "That pin he's wearing. That's the Medal of Honor, the highest military decoration in the United States. It's given for valor in action against an enemy force, for acts of bravery so far above and beyond the call of duty that they're almost incomprehensible." Marcus was still reading from his phone, his voice growing stronger. "January 14th, 1971. Specialist Taylor's platoon was ambushed during a patrol." He paused, wiping his eyes. "Jimmy Specialist Taylor, he ran into the kill zone. Under constant fire from 3 directions. He dragged 4 wounded men to safety. Then he went back. And back. And back. For 2 hours, he made 7 trips into that ambush zone. Every time, they told him not to go. Every time, he went anyway. People around the restaurant were crying now. An elderly veteran at a far table had stood, also saluting. Marcus continued. He was hit twice. Once in the leg, once in the shoulder. He kept going. He brought out 37 men. 37 soldiers who would have died. Only when the last man was safe did he allow himself to be treated." Brandon's legs seemed to give out. He grabbed the counter for support. "The Medal of Honor was presented to him by President Nixon in 1972, Marcus finished. "There are only 65 living recipients in the entire country." He lowered his phone and looked at James with something like reverence. "And you're working at McDonald's?" James smiled, gentle and tired. "I'm serving, same as I always did. Just different uniform." Brandon Cooper stood frozen, his mouth opening and closing without sound. Around him, the restaurant had transformed. Customers were standing, some saluting, some with phones out recording. The kitchen staff had come out from the back, staring in awe. Finally, Brandon found words. I didn't know. I didn't." James turned off the fryer, wiped his hands on his apron. You weren't supposed to know. I don't wear the medal to work. That's not why I'm here. But I yelled at you. I told you that you were too slow. I said. Brandon's voice broke. I said you couldn't do your job. You were frustrated, James said calmly. I understand. The lunch rush is stressful. No. Brandon shook his head violently. No, that's not an excuse. You're a Medal of Honor recipient. You're a hero, and I treated you like an employee, James finished. Which is what I am. The medal was for something I did 53 years ago. Today, I make fries. And you're right, I am slower than the younger workers. But I'm thorough. I'm careful. Because I learned a long time ago that rushing gets people hurt. Marcus stepped closer. Sir, why? Why are you working here? You have a pension? Benefits, you should be. Sitting at home? James smiled. My wife died 3 years ago. The house got too quiet. I needed to be around people, to be useful. McDonald's hired me when I needed something to do. They gave me a purpose. He looked around at the watching faces. I don't do this for recognition. I do it because service is who I am. Whether I'm carrying wounded soldiers or making sure a family gets hot fries with their happy meal, it's all service. And all service matters. Brandon was crying now, openly, not caring who saw. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. James stepped around the counter. He was shorter than Brandon, older, worn by decades of life. But when he looked up at the younger man, there was no anger in his eyes. Only kindness. Brandon, let me tell you something I learned in Vietnam. You know what I remember most about that day? Not the medals or the ceremony. I remember the faces of the men I carried out. I remember thinking, if I can get him home, his mother won't get that letter. His children will know their father. He paused. Every person who comes through that door, they matter. The single mom getting happy meals for her kids, she matters. The construction worker grabbing lunch on his break, he matters. The teenager getting their first job here, they matter. And making sure they get good service, hot food, and a smile. That's not beneath me. Nothing that serves others is ever beneath anyone. What happened next would be talked about for months. Marcus insisted on paying for James's meal. Not that James had bought anything, but Marcus went to Sarah, the hiring manager, and arranged for James to eat free for life. Then he posted the encounter on Facebook. Within 3 hours, it had 50,000 shares. Within a day, local news crews were at the restaurant. Within a week, the story had gone national. But in the moment, in that McDonald, on that Tuesday afternoon, something simpler happened. Brandon wiped his eyes, straightened his shoulders, and addressed the entire restaurant. Ladies and gentlemen, I need to say something. This man, Jimmy Taylor, is a Medal of Honor recipient. He served our country with extraordinary bravery. And I've been treating him terribly. I've yelled at him for being slow. I've questioned his abilities. I've been completely, utterly wrong. He turned to James. From now on, this restaurant will do things differently. Jimmy, you set your own pace. You work however feels right to you. And anyone who has a problem with that answers to me. James smiled. Brandon, I don't need special treatment. It's not special treatment, Brandon interrupted. It's respect, which I should have shown from the start. To you and to every employee here. 3 months later, McDonald's corporate reached out to James for a campaign about veteran employment. He politely declined. I'm not a symbol, he told them. I'm just a guy who makes fries. But he did agree to one interview with the local newspaper. The reporter asked him why he'd never mentioned his Medal of Honor to anyone at work. Because it doesn't define me, James said. I did something brave once, a long time ago. But bravery isn't a single moment. It's showing up every day. It's being kind when you're tired. It's serving others even when it's hard. He paused, looking at the reporter with those pale blue eyes. The real heroes are the single parents working 2 jobs, the people caring for sick family members. The folks showing up to work even when their bodies hurt and their hearts are heavy. They don't get medals, but they're just as brave. Brandon Cooper became a different kind of manager after that day. He still pushed for efficiency, but never at the cost of dignity. He learned every employee's story. He discovered that the quiet woman at the register was putting herself through nursing school, that the teenager on drive-thru was saving for his mother's medical bills, that everyone had a story, a struggle, a hidden strength. And James kept making fries, methodical, careful, perfect every time. Because service, he'd learned long ago, wasn't about speed. It was about doing it right. James Taylor's story reminds us that you never know who you're standing next to. The person serving you coffee might be a published author. The janitor might be a former CEO. The quiet coworker might have saved lives. The Medal of Honor James wears represents one day of extraordinary courage. But the real lesson is about the courage it takes to show up, every day, and serve others with dignity, no matter the job, no matter the pay, no matter who's watching. If this story moved you, K. Sup and dismissed. Anyone who needs a reminder that all work has dignity. Subscribe for more stories of hidden heroes. Have you ever discovered someone's incredible background after judging them? Remember, respect isn't earned by medals. It's owed to everyone, simply because they're human beings doing honest work. The next time you're at McDonald's, or any restaurant, or any business, look at the people serving you. Really see them, because one of them might have saved 37 lives. And even if they didn't, they still deserve your respect. See you in the next story.